Is this some kind of joke, Colonel? The words, sharp and laced with disbelief, cut through the oppressive heat shimmering off the flight line. Chief Warrant Officer Evans, his face a mask of professional frustration, stared not at his commanding officer, but at the old man standing beside him. The old man, Theodore Brewer, seemed unfazed by the heat, the roar of distant jets, or the scorn in the young officer's voice. He was a relic, clad in faded, grease-stained coveralls that had seen better decades. His hands thick with calluses and mapped with the fine lines of 1,000 repairs hung calmly at his sides. He simply looked at the silent beast before them. An AH-64 Apache, the apex of modern aerial warfare, rendered as inert as a museum piece by a ghost in its own machine. Colonel Davies sighed, the sound barely cutting through the whine of a distant C-130. "Chief, this is Mr. Brewer. He's here to offer a second opinion." Evans let out a sharp laugh. "A second opinion, sir? With all due respect, my team has been inside this bird for 72 straight hours. We've run every diagnostic protocol known to modern aviation. We pulled the FADEC, boroscoped the turbine, pressure tested every fuel line, and replaced half the sensors. The digital logs are clean. The machine says there's nothing wrong. Yet the port T-700 won't cycle past 50% on spool up. We have General Electric engineers on video conference examining our data right now. What we don't need," he gestured dismissively at Theodore, "is help from someone who probably learned on propeller aircraft." Theodore didn't react. His gaze remained fixed on the Apache, unwavering. He was over 80, his face weathered by harsh years. His eyes, though clouded with age, held a focus that was almost unnerving. He wasn't just looking at the helicopter. He was reading it, studying how it sat on its gear, analyzing the angles of its armor, absorbing its mechanical silence. A cluster of young mechanics had gathered nearby, drawn by the strange confrontation. These were elite technicians who could interface with billion-dollar systems through tablets. This Apache had destroyed their confidence over 3 brutal days. Now they watched with curiosity and barely concealed mockery. Whispers rippled through them. Who was this old man? Some retired legend? A desperate last resort? "Let him look, Chief." Davies' voice carried the hard edge of command. Evans' jaw tightened. He stepped back with theatrical surrender. "Fine, sir. The flight line is yours, Mr. Brewer. Just please don't touch anything. It's extremely sensitive equipment." Theodore gave the colonel a slow nod and began to move. He didn't head for the open engine cowling where Evans' team had focused. Instead, he started at the tail, his gnarled fingers gently tracing the stabilator. He moved with shuffling grace, completely at home in this world of jet fuel and hydraulics. Every movement was economical, his attention absolute. He circled the Apache, slowly, head cocked as if listening for something they couldn't hear. The young mechanics exchanged smirks. He looked like a farmer checking livestock, not a technician diagnosing a turboshaft engine. He finally reached the port side, stopping beneath the problematic engine. He didn't look up at the complex maze of tubes and wires. He knelt down, his knees cracking in protest, and peered underneath where the engine met the fuselage. "Flashlight," he said, his voice gravelly from disuse. A young sergeant eagerly handed him a tactical torch. Evans rolled his eyes. "Sir, we've had military-grade imaging in there. A flashlight won't reveal anything we missed." Theodore ignored him. He played the beam across the underbelly methodically, observing how light reflected off rivets and seams. He placed one hand flat against the metal skin and closed his eyes. The mechanics saw an old man touching an airplane. Davies saw a master communing with a machine. He'd heard stories about the Ghost, a Vietnam-era mechanic who could sense fractures through solid steel. He'd brought Theodore as a last resort, a prayer to a forgotten god. After a full minute of silent communion, Theodore opened his eyes and pushed himself to his feet. He reached into his coverall pocket and pulled out a worn leather roll. He untied it with practiced fingers. Inside, nestled in soft cloth, were not gleaming modern tools, but oddly shaped hand-forged instruments, polished smooth by decades of use. Evans' jaw went rigid. What in God's name are those? Theodore selected one. It was a long, slender piece of steel bent at an unnatural angle, its tip ground to razor fineness. It looked more like a medieval instrument than something for an Apache. "You are not putting that thing anywhere near my engine," Evans snapped, his composure shattering. That's it. I'm calling this, sir. This is a waste of everyone's time. As Theodore held the strange tool, sunlight glinting off its surface, the world seemed to slow. The whine of distant jets faded, replaced by thumping Huey rotors and monsoon rain. The jet fuel smell mixed with metallic scent of blood and fear. He wasn't on an American flight line. He was in a muddy Ashau Valley clearing, rain plastering his hair down. A young pilot, face pale with shock, screamed over the storm. "We have to go. They're coming." The Huey's engine sputtered, a critical linkage severed by a shrapnel. No spare parts, no tools, just wreckage of a burned truck nearby. In his mind, he saw his younger self hammering red-hot leaves spring against rock, shaping it, grinding it, creating this very tool. He'd used it to bypass the damaged linkage, an impossible repair, and the Huey lifted off as enemy soldiers broke through trees, carrying 12 wounded men to safety. The tool wasn't just metal, it was memory. It was promise. Back in the present, Sergeant Miller, a sharp young mechanic watching everything, felt anger tighten in his stomach. He'd seen how Evans treated the old man, the sheer disrespect. But he'd also seen the look in Brewer's eyes, a look of deep, unshakable certainty. He'd seen that look once before in a bomb tech's eyes before disarming a complex IED. It was the look of someone who saw reality differently than everyone else. Evans stepped toward Theodore, hand raised as if to physically stop him. "Mr. Brewer, I'm ordering you to step away from this aircraft. You're a civilian interfering with critical military hardware. Don't make me call security forces." This was the final humiliation. The threat of arrest hung heavy in the still air. The mechanic shifted uncomfortably. This had gone from curiosity to crisis. Miller couldn't challenge a chief warrant officer directly without destroying his career, but he couldn't just watch this happen. He subtly pulled out his phone, keeping it low. His fingers flew across the screen, texting the colonel's executive aide monitoring from the command tower. The message was brief and urgent. "Sir, C.W. Evans is about to have Mr. Brewer escorted off by security forces. He's threatening detention. The colonel needs to get back here now. I think the old man found it. I really think he found it." He hit send. The message shot across the base network, a digital spark of rebellion. Inside the command building, Colonel Davies stormed into his office. His aide met him with phone in hand. "Sir, urgent text from Sergeant Miller on the flight line." Davies read it, his expression hardening. "Get me the base archives. Now." Moments later, a voice answered. "Archives, Specialist Rowe speaking." "Rowe, this is Colonel Davies. I need a service file lookup. Brewer, Theodore Brewer, late 60s to early 80s, aviation maintenance, rapid keyboard clicking." "Got it. Brewer Theodore." "Sir, this file is extensive. Read me his commendations," Davies ordered, pacing. "Yes, sir. Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star, Legion of Merit, Distinguished Flying Cross, 16 Air Medals with 1 V for Valor, Purple Heart with 2 oak leaf clusters. Sir, the list is 4 pages long." Davies stopped pacing. "Read the DSC citation. For extraordinary heroism on March 12, 1969, Specialist Brewer, with complete disregard for his own safety, remained with a downed medevac helicopter under intense enemy fire for 6 hours. Using improvised tools forged from wreckage, he repaired a catastrophically damaged rotor assembly and severed fuel line, enabling evacuation of 9 critically wounded soldiers. Sir, there's more. A dozen similar citations. Field engine swaps under fire, landing gear repairs during combat. They called him the ghost of a Shao because he made dead birds fly again. Davies felt a chill despite the cool office. There's a note from General Peterson, the specialist added. He was one of the pilots Brewer saved. It says, if this man ever asks for anything, give it to him. He is the finest battlefield mechanic this Army has ever produced. Full stop. Davies hung up. Get my car, he commanded, and get General Peterson on the line. Tell him a ghost from his past is on our flight line being threatened with arrest. Back on the tarmac, Theodore, still holding his handmade tool, had ignored Evans' threat completely. He pointed with his delicate tip toward a spot deep in the engine's guts, buried under wiring and conduits. There, Theodore said calmly. The bleed air valve's pneumatic line. There's a crack. Evans' face flushed red. That's impossible. We scoped that section twice. The fiber optic showed nothing. There is no crack. He stepped forward, blocking Theodore's access. That's it. I've had enough. Sergeant, he barked, go get security forces. Tell them we have an unauthorized civilian interfering with military property. The young sergeant froze, looking from the furious chief to the impossibly calm old man. But before he could move, a new sound cut through the air. Not a jet or helicopter, but squealing tires on asphalt. A black Ford Expedition with government plates drove directly onto the flight line, breaking protocols. It screeched to a halt yards from the Apache. Mechanics snapped to attention. Evans spun around, mouth agape at the regulation breach. Colonel Davies emerged from the passenger side, face like thunder. But the man who climbed from the pine seat caused every jaw to drop. He wore a flight suit with 4 gleaming stars on the shoulders. A full general. It was General Peterson, visiting commander from Army Futures Command. The sight of a 4-star general appearing unannounced on an active flight line was unprecedented, like seeing a unicorn. The world stopped. Evans snapped the most rigid salute of his life. General, sir, I wasn't aware you were. Peterson didn't look at him. He strode past the saluting chief, past the state-of-the-art helicopter, past the expert technicians, and stopped directly before Theodore Brewer. The entire flight line held its breath. The 4-star general clicked his heels together and delivered the sharpest, most respectful salute Evans had ever witnessed. A salute of profound deference from subordinate to superior, though Theodore wore no rank. Teddy, the general's voice was thick with emotion. My God, it's really you. Theodore slowly lowered his tool. Recognition flickered. Pete, you got old. A choked laugh escaped the general. Men, his voice boomed across the tarmac. You stand in the presence of a living legend. This is Theodore Brewer. When I was 23, my bird went down in a Shao Valley. Surrounded, taking heavy fire with multiple wounded, no one could reach us. But Teddy Brewer flew in on a dust-off Huey that had no business being airborne. He landed under bullets, jury-rigged our destroyed engine with a Leatherman and wire, then flew his bird out with mine as an escort, saving 18 American lives. This man is not a mechanic. He is a miracle worker. Davies read the Distinguished Service Cross citation aloud, his voice clear and strong. The story of impossible repair under fire, quiet heroism that never sought spotlight. As he read, smirks on young mechanics' faces melted into pure awe. They weren't looking at a crazy old man anymore. They were looking at a giant. When Davies finished, profound silence settled. The general's gaze, cold and hard as granite, fell on Evans. He didn't raise his voice. The quiet menace was more terrifying than any shout. Chief, he began dangerously low. You have millions in diagnostic equipment. Laptops that measure turbine blade tolerance to a millionth of an inch. But none of that can teach you to listen. None teaches humility, and none teaches respect. He gestured toward Theodore. This man's hands have forgotten more about keeping men alive by keeping machines airborne than you'll ever learn from a screen. Your diagnostics told you nothing was wrong. He listened to the silence, and it told him everything. You failed because you thought you were smarter than the machine. He succeeded because he knew he wasn't. The public rebuke was complete, delivered before Evans' entire team. The chief's face, once red with anger, was now pale with shame. He looked at the ground, unable to meet the general's eyes. Theodore Brewer took a shuffling step forward. He looked at the humiliated young officer, and his voice, when it came, was not triumphant, but gently instructive. It's not your fault, son, he said, kindness surprising everyone. The machines are loud, computers are loud. You were trained to listen to all that noise. But the machine always whispers the truth. You just have to be quiet enough to hear it. He held up his handmade tool. Your scope couldn't see the crack because it's a pressure fracture. It only opens under specific stress at 50% spool up. It's invisible when the engine's cold and static. Your diagnostics look for a state of being. I listen for a moment of becoming, the moment it becomes broken. You don't find problems like this with your eyes. You find them with your hands. Following Theodore's instructions, the crew removed the pneumatic line. Under microscope, there was the fracture, hairline thin as spider thread, exactly where Theodore said. The part was replaced. The Apache's engine spooled up perfectly past 50, 60, 80%. settling into stable, powerful roar. The ghost was exercised. General Peterson ordered a new training module, Advanced Tactile Diagnostics, with Theodore as lead instructor. Evans wasn't disciplined traditionally. His punishment was being Theodore's first student. Weeks later, in the quiet workshop, Evans clumsily used a hand file on aluminum, trying to replicate Theodore's tools. Theodore appeared with coffee, watched, then gently adjusted Evans' grip. "Easy now," the old man said quietly. "Don't fight it. Let the tool do the work. Feel how it wants to cut." Under guidance, Evans' strokes became smoother. He was beginning to understand. In that workshop, a different repair was taking place. One of mentorship, humility, and timeless transfer of wisdom. Theodore Brewer's story reminds us that true expertise is earned in fire, not downloaded from screens, and the greatest tools we possess are found in the hands and hearts of those who came before us.